WNST. Hope everybody around your place is doing some baking and some eggnog and some toddy and gift wrapping and all of that. There is a gift underneath the tree on Sunday for someone in Pittsburgh or Baltimore. The Steelers and the Ravens getting together. Ray Fittipaldo has covered all things Steelers for a number of years now, long enough to have the bruises of this incredible matchup on a Christmas day. And Ray, I guess you're giving Christmas up the way the rest of us are, either at home or in Pittsburgh, where they're going to come out 60,000 strong for a meaningful football game. Happy Christmas, happy holidays to you. How you doing, Ray?
Yeah, same to you, Nestor. Yeah, no one likes to work on Christmas Day, but when there's a division title at stake between these two teams that have had a great history here over the last, 10, 15 years, I guess it makes it a little bit easier to get out there and work on a day like that.
You know what? We've decided in our household for one day only to move Christmas to the 26th. We're going to be like Canadians. We're going to go Boxing Day, and we're going to do all that. I'm coming up for the game. It wasn't on the original calendar, although I think we all sort of saw that this could mean something. I don't know that anybody on this side of the fence has really bought in on the Ravens are a real contender to win and get to Houston and be a Super Bowl team. No one has felt the signs of that here through 14 games. But this would be one of those things where if they win in Pittsburgh, they're one team that doesn't go up there with any puddle between their legs. They know how to win up there. Now the question is, how do they do that without Jimmy Smith on Christmas Day?
Yeah, that's going to be interesting. You watch these matchups in recent years. I think, 4 in a row for the Ravens and 6 out of the last 8, I think, overall. So
that always hurts Mike Tomlin's feelings when we bring that up. Yes,
yeah,
he doesn't like that.
John Harbaugh seems to have Mike's number, and in the game last month down in Baltimore, the Ravens defense really held Roethlisberger in check for 50 some minutes of that game before he sort of got on a roll. So the Steelers are going to have to figure something out here. I think it's interesting that the last 2 weeks, Tom Brady's passed for over 400 yards. And last week, the Eagles rushed for 169. If the Steelers can figure out either a way to get Big Ben going for one of his typical days at Heinz Field, or you get Le'Veon Bell going for one of his typical days, that would make things much easier for the Steelers in the second go-round. But I just don't have the answer for why the Ravens have sort of mastered them over the last 4 or 5 years, and it's something that Mike Tomlin and his staff are going to have to figure out here over the next couple of days.
Yeah, Ray, I'm going to put together a graphic. So it's, Baltimore greater than Pittsburgh, greater than Cincinnati, greater than Baltimore, greater than Pittsburgh. We beat the Steelers beat the Bengals beat us. That is the, Ohio, Baltimore, Pittsburgh sort of triangle at this point. And Cincinnati have many times have thought they've beaten the Steelers. Certainly in the third quarter when the Ravens looked like they were on cruise control and things were cool, and Cincinnati had a 2-touchdown. You're thinking, whoa, maybe we get a little help from the Bengals here. Maybe the Bengals are tired of having their noses bloodied. Certainly the Steelers are tired of having their noses bloodied by the Ravens, which I think makes this a little more interesting in a Vegas standpoint. But coming into the game this week, there's not any great feeling about the Ravens around here, and certainly the fact that they haven't won a road game since September, that their pathway into the playoffs is to win in Pittsburgh, where they won before, in Cincinnati, where they never win, perhaps with an A.J. Green coming back next week as well. There isn't the vibe around here, and especially in almost losing the game to the Eagles, that the Ravens are up to this task on Sunday.
Well, there's a little bit of that back here in Pittsburgh, too. I think it's interesting, whether it's Baltimore or Pittsburgh, one team will make the playoffs and win the division lately with a 4-game losing streak, because both of those teams had long losing streaks early in the season.
At least you guys didn't lose to the Jets.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. But, the Steelers have sort of, turned it around at midseason here. They've got really great production out of their rookie class. All 3 rookies are starting now, and 2 of them are in the secondary, and Artie Burns made his first start down in Baltimore, got a pick, also got burned for a 95-yard touchdown. But
that happens.
He's starting to come into his own, and Sean Davis, the strong safety, good in recent weeks too. So, I think they're starting to find their identity on defense. They're sort of getting back to the way they have been and they weren't that team in the first half of the season. And the offense, before the season, you thought that would have been the strength, but really, Ben's been up and down. They have no number 2 receiver opposite Antonio Brown, and really they've been kind of reliant on the run game with Le'Veon Bell, and that's kind of a dicey situation when you look at the Ravens' rush defense over the course of the year. I know they had a little slip-up last week, but I don't know if you could count on Le'Veon Bell getting 100 yards against this rush defense. So the Steelers have some work cut off for them on offense, but this defense is starting to come together pretty darn good.
We are chatting with Ray Fittipaldo. He covers all things Steelers with Yins and Ad out in Pittsburgh. And Merry Christmas even to the Steelers fans this week. I'm going to be nice. Ray Fit1 is how to find him out on Twitter as well as at thepostgazette.com. There's a lot of meat on the bone in this game. And, all that history aside and what happened the last time out, I've really never felt like we've had a fair crack at the Steelers in recent years because they always sort of come into these games with Ben Roethlisberger missing or no Le'Veon Bell or somebody's got a drug habit and they're out of the league for a week or two or there's some injury or whatever. And the secondary's been a little mishmash all the way along. And it is interesting you'd say it does matter when rookies are looking like they're going to be starters the next year when you get to the holidays, right? Like, it doesn't always come out that way in September. And I remember seeing Sammy Coates down at the Senior Bowl a couple years ago and thinking, hey, well, like, see that? I mean, look, every good wide receiver, we've struggled in that department, as I'm sure you're well aware of over the years, in getting quality wide receivers in Baltimore. And Coates was one of those guys we looked at. Obviously, Brashad Perryman became a guy that they actually got. It hasn't worked out so great on our end. And the receiver thing is the biggest crapshoot in the draft, and we always say that. We've been saying that here for 2 decades since the Ravens got back in the league. But Sammy Coates, and Brashad Perryman, had those guys stepped up to be the next guys, we'd be talking about different kinds of potency in the offensive attacks of both of these teams now, wouldn't we?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I'm sure your listeners down there in Baltimore are aware of how good Martavis Bryant was last year on their playoff run. Antonio Brown was out of that divisional round game against the Broncos, and they really looked at Martavis Bryant. He had a great game, and they were on course to win that game with Martavis playing a starring role. So when you take him out of the equation, and then you count on a young guy like Sammy Coates, and Sammy got off to a great start this year. He was averaging like 24 yards a catch early on, scoring touchdowns, and then he fractured a finger in a game, and then a couple of weeks later he fractured another finger, and he hasn't been the same. And he played a little bit more last week against the Bengals. They targeted him a little bit more, but he's had a hard time catching the ball with those injured fingers, and he's had a hard time rebuilding his confidence because, it's been about 6 or 8 games now since he's really made an impact on this offense. So he's really the only guy, the only deep threat on that team that can sort of keep the Ravens honest. And I think the Steelers are probably going to play him a little bit more this week, even if he's a decoy, Nestor. If he could just sort of run 40 yards down the field and just
take somebody with him,
pose a little bit of a threat. Sort of keep those safeties honest. I think that'll create a little bit of room for Antonio Brown, and that passing game might be a little bit better this second time around, but they've just been struggling here for so long in the second half of the season that I don't expect a complete turnaround, at least.
Yeah,
here on Sunday.
Nobody's healthy, right? I mean, Yonda's playing with one arm. We saw Suggs last week playing with one arm, and who knows what's going on with that. Smith's not in there anymore. It feels like the Ravens may be trending the wrong way to be seeing a receiver like Brown. Now, I have not watched last week's game cover to cover. I saw the highlights. First off, how do they get behind by a couple touchdowns to the Bengals? I tipped the cap for them coming back, but I do look up and say, they're not this intimidating force at this point. The Steelers are very much trying to figure things out, and one of the things they couldn't figure out last week was how to get the ball to Antonio Brown, right?
Yeah, I mean, early on, it's such an odd stat. Andy Dalton only had 157 yards passing in that game, and in the first half of that game, it seemed like he was picking them apart. I mean, they were throwing the ball to Brandon LaFell. They were getting big runs with Jeremy Hill and Burkhead. And they were doing really well. driving up and down the field, scoring touchdowns. When they weren't, they were kicking field goals, and the offense just had a hard time getting on track. In the second half, they started stopping the run, and then they put Andy Dalton in situations where Andy Dalton has been prone to make mistakes in the past. And I think the Bengals had 4 second-half possessions, and it was punt, interception, punt, punt. And the Steelers just capitalized on every single one of those opportunities. And, thanks to the Bengals imploding a little bit on that final drive, they were able to score their first touchdown of the game midway through the fourth, and were able to pull out a hard-fought victory. But as you know, Nestor, AFC North football, whether you're playing a sub-500 team like the Bengals or a team that's pretty good like the Ravens, everyone knows each other. They know tendencies. It's just sort of one of those, knock them down, sock them out type of games where, you just have to sort of beat your opponent with nuts and bolts football. And the Steelers finally were able to come through and make some plays in that second half to get the win.
Dude, I got pictures from 10 years ago of me with Terrell Suggs holding up R.I.P. Big Ben tombstones before games. And, this thing's going on and on for a lot of the players. One of the things that I find fascinating is the Steve Smith-Mike Mitchell thing, right? And, the fact that Steve Smith's only been around here a minute and a half and has won most of the time there and here, and that there's still, there's some real disdain just for putting on the colors of the Hatfields and McCoys, right?
Yeah, I guess that goes back to their Carolina playing days.
Sure, absolutely. It traveled with them, and it is clearly, it's for real if you know Steve Smith. I'll tell you that much. I don't know Mike Mitchell.
Absolutely, Nestor, but it is kind of strange. You don't usually hear this type of stuff aired publicly where you were teammates and didn't get along, and, then they both play it up so much. It's, it's kind of interesting how it all plays out, but Steve Smith is, a heck of a competitor, been a long time, just really good wide receiver in this league. And Mike Safety's a guy who, he's a guy who's prone to playing on the edge, and he's a guy who gets a lot of penalties for hard hits and maybe questionable hits at times. And I guess, the last couple of years they've sort of gone head-to-head here, and Steve hasn't taken a liking to some of the stuff that's been dished out or tried to be dished out to him. So, that's another sidebar to this whole thing. The rivalry is huge. It's always going to be huge. But I think all that sort of periphery stuff on the periphery gets pushed off to the side. Both of these teams know if we win this game, for the Steelers, they do win the division. For the Ravens, they're taking a huge step towards winning the division. So I think all that, extracurricular stuff is going to be sort of pushed off to the side, and we'll probably just get some good, hard physical football on Sunday afternoon.
He is Ray Fittipaldo. Looking forward to some Yuletide cheer in the Berg. I'll be there on Sunday. So will he. You can follow his journey before, during, or after the game at Ray Fit and the #1, also at the Post-Gazette up in Pittsburgh. All right, so the Ravens struggled in the front seven in stopping a running attack that, quite frankly, I don't know that anybody around here took it seriously in the Eagles game. Certainly the Jay Ajayes, and they've seen Ezekiel Elliott. They've seen some big-time backs here. The Le'Veon Bell thing is, first off, we haven't seen it, I think, the way they want to run it. The other part of this is 6-7 weeks ago, both of these teams' offensive lines were a mess then. Your quarterback was a mess then. Our quarterback's been a mess most of the year, quite frankly, coming back off the injury. It's better, right? The offensive line and the running game, this is where Tomlin wants it to be, to say, if we can smack Baltimore in the mouth, get through Cleveland, get a home game on January 7th, that's when we get some momentum to run the ball, and that will travel to New England. That could travel to Oakland or Kansas City or wherever else we got to go. But I think as much as Big Ben is heralded in the passing games there and you want a second receiving option, if they run the ball well, the rest of it sort of takes care of itself if they can play a little bit of defense.
Yeah, I think you're right. In that first matchup, Ben was first game back off that injury, and I'm not sure if he was ready to play, but they had a game plan in place where they were intent on running the ball. And when they did have him drop back, they weren't going to put him in dangerous situations. So
had that game been the Browns, or had that game been Jacksonville or San Francisco at home, I bet he wouldn't have played. Agree or disagree?
I think you're absolutely right.
Fair enough.
And one thing that I noticed in that game when I went back and I watched the tape, Eric Weddle was walking down, creeping up into that box a lot, and Ben wasn't checking out of plays like he usually does. So I don't even know if he had the green light to audible in those games. So if Weddle's going to do the same thing in this game, if he's going to creep down and they're going to try to present 8-man fronts to stop Le'Veon Bell in Pittsburgh, Ben Roethlisberger is healthy now. He's going to be able to get out of those plays. He's going to be able to throw the ball deep down the field to make some plays against the secondary, which, as you noted at the top, is dealing with some injuries as well. So I think this game could be different the second time around for Roethlisberger. I think he could be more successful, but you are exactly right when you say the Steelers have run the ball better since that last Baltimore game. The offensive line is playing much better, and I do think they will rely on Bell, whether it's completely through the running game or getting the ball in his hands through the passing game, where he's excellent as well. One way or the other, Le'Veon Bell is going to have a big impact on this game, I think.
I'm guessing this is not a blowout on Christmas. I have a feeling that, 4:30 start, right around 6:15, 6:30, this sucker's going to be 21-17, 16-13, 20-16, something like that. And then we're going to start talking about kickers, and we're going to start talking about a kid on this side of the fence that has just been remarkable against every other kicker there's ever been, quite frankly, in whatever conditions. And I'm sure if Tomlin can lace him up so that in the fourth quarter he would not be kicking into the bowl, but instead kicking into the confluence, whatever the weather conditions would be. It's going to be a chilly evening, I'm sure, on Christmas night when St. Nick comes through there with those Permane sandwiches and that nonsense. Boy, Chris Boswell, 6 last week. Tucker, this is, the kicking part of this. It really is strange, but it comes down to winning and losing a division. I would believe that these guys are going to play a huge role in this thing, even if it's extra points.
Yeah, Tucker's been so good for so long, too. Chris Boswell just came onto the scene last year. He's been excellent, but I think Justin Tucker's the best place kicker in the National Football League. And if it comes down to, a 50-plus yard field goal at Heinz Field on Sunday afternoon, I have no doubt that guy would probably come through unless there were extreme weather conditions. And right now they're just calling for, temperatures in the 40s, maybe the 30s by the time that game is winding down. So I think definite edge to the Ravens when it comes to the kicker. But as you mentioned, Chris Boswell, 6 for 6 last week, and he's just been a really good, consistent kicker for them since they sort of discovered him almost by mistake last season when they were going through kickers like nobody's business.
How's my boy Tomlin doing up there? Is he hanging in there? This far in, you think about him, you think about Harbaugh. These guys been here a long time now, and I'm telling you, that 2-point conversion the other day and the whole philosophy did not reflect well upon the head coach here. And, I know both of these organizations have shown incredible patience all the way through, but I just figured I'd check in. How's Mike Tomlin doing?
Nah, he's doing well. If you would have checked in during that 4-game losing streak, I think the fans were on him a little bit more. But he's never had a losing season. He's been 500 or better most of the time, much better during his tenure, and he's got a chance to clinch another division title on his home field on Sunday afternoon. So, a lot riding on this game, and the Steelers once again are in position to have a nice season under Tomlin and perhaps a nice little playoff run too, if they could sort of, get their stuff together at the right time here. But not so well during the 4-game losing streak. But fans are much nicer towards him now that he's won 5 in a row.
Yeah, I already texted him and told him I'm coming down his chimney like a purple Grinch to curdle his eggnog. That's why we're coming to Pittsburgh. And this is what it's all about, right? When this one comes out on the schedule, and the league's really gotten this right, haven't they, Frey? The fact that, and forget that it's Christmas, and I know your people are displaced, and we've had people here displaced on holidays as well, and Thanksgiving. It's part of football. At least you get 7 or 8 months to prepare for it for the most part. But the league gets this part of it right, not just here, but I think, in the NFC where, you're going to see Detroit, and Green Bay battling here in the next couple of weeks. And that's even the bad divisions like Houston and Tennessee right now, and Indianapolis playing the role of spoiler, if not champion. This is good. This is what makes football great, I think, at this point in the year.
Yeah, 2 years ago, last game of the season, this is the year all 3 AFC North teams made the playoffs. The Steelers beat the Bengals in the final game of the regular season to win the AFC North. That knocked the Bengals down to a 5th seed, and then the Ravens ended up getting the 6th seed. Then they came here and knocked off the Steelers. So, Yeah, I mean, anytime you can create these late season division matchups the way they have, I think it's a good thing. But for one reason or another, and I don't understand this, you can go back and look in the Steelers media guide. It's like 7 out of the last 9 years now the Steelers have finished with Cleveland. So I don't know. Maybe they're figuring the Steelers can wrap up this division title on Christmas Day. But for one reason or another, the Steelers always draw Cleveland on the final week, and they're either resting their guys or they're beating the tar out of the Browns to wrap up some seeding. But I really like what the NFL has done with these final 2-3 weeks of the season where they're trying to create these climactic endings, and this year they're getting their money's worth.
Yeah, Cleveland will win a game at some point, Ray. It just won't be this year, right? Whoo, man. I mean,
unless the Steelers rest their guys. Maybe if the Steelers win this week and then they rest their guys, I don't know. Could happen.
Oh, come on, man! Steelers aren't going to let Cleveland get any. If there's a chance to make them 0-16, Mike Tomlin would find he'd walk to Cleveland to do that. I think. Hey, man,
you might be right.
Take care of yourself. Merry Christmas. Thanks for taking some time and coming on with us. And hey, we'll see you at the Confluence on Sunday. Tell Mr. Rooney to mix me up a nice prime rib or salad for the holidays. Okay.
Sounds good. Have a Merry Christmas.
We'll see you soon. There he goes, Ray Fittipaldo up there in Pittsburgh. We're going to be doing a lot of that this week. He's with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. You can follow his journey at RayFit1 out on Twitter. You can find me in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world. We're going to be on Tuesday night up at Adams Jeep in Aberdeen with Mike Wallace. We'll be swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry. Come on out, give a spit, meet the new wide receiver. We hope we have a happy story to tell on Tuesday of playoff journey and purple and all that good stuff. Be time to hang the purple lights now, won't it? A little Festivus for the rest of us. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That is brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life there. Last but never least, breaking news happens first on the WNST Tech Service. That is brought to you by Coons Ford, Security Boulevard, and Dennis Colatzos will be here on Thursday driving you home, getting you ready for all things Ravens and Steelers, as well as Thursday Night Football. And a weekend of bowl games, and the Terps play on Monday in the whatever it's called, Detroit Bowl. What is it called? Quick Lane Bowl. Yeah, that thing that's going on in Detroit that no one's going to watch. 2:30 on Monday. Terps are playing basketball as well. We got the Caps happening, as well as, if at any point the Orioles do anything in the offseason above and beyond Wellington Castillo, you'll get it sent to you on the WNST Tech Service. All brought to you by Coons Ford, Security Boulevard. All right, Nasty at WNST.net reaches me. Yes, our London trip is on sale. You can go to the trips tab at WNST.net and click on that. You can buy that for the holidays this week. Makes a perfect holiday gift. Hey, honey, we're going to London to see the Ravens. Oh, my God. It'll be fun. It'll be good. And Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net AM 1570 and WNST Taos in Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.